Hey, welcome everyone to the 19th, August 19th, 2025 iteration of the MicroProfile live Hangout. A link to the meeting minutes is in the chat. Thanks, Amelia. And go ahead and click on the link and add your names. Organization is optional. And it is everyone's shared responsibility to take notes. Sorry, I gotta admit someone in here. Um, this meeting is being recorded and will eventually find its way to YouTube. Okay, so today's agenda, I think probably one of the bigger items is, and thanks, David. Let me move this over here. Sorry, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping here. I have a little bit of a different setup. Move things around. There we go. Now I have the notes on my main screen. The minutes. Okay, so David posted a post to the Google group, and there's a link to it there. Go ahead and take a look. And David, would you have some time to kind of verbalize what you've written up
Yeah, sure.
today? Yeah.
You know,
Sorry, not right
um,
now. I'm just gonna go
oh,
through the agenda items, and then I'll
okay, yeah, all right.
yeah, I'll ping you.
I'm here.
Um,
So, yeah.
okay, awesome. And I apologize, everyone, if I end up talking over people a little bit. Again, it's like for some reason my headphones are like auto reducing the audio in my ears when I speak, so it's like I have a hard time hearing, and that's a user error. In fact, I might switch my headphones here while David talks, um, to see if that fixes it. Let's see other things. Um, let's see. I did reach out to um let's see if we have it yet to share and to figure out what our budget status is. But I did it kind of this morning, so I don't know if you've seen it yet. And so yeah, I don't think she's got that yet. But for the next live hangout, we'll probably see where we're at in terms of budget, and we got to mentally start thinking about the program plan for 2026. Okay. Other things, Sharon sent out an email about elections this time of year for, getting ready for working group elections if we want to hold an election, um, for, uh, sorry, what do you call it? Do we call it chair? What do we call it
Committee
for the
rep.
working group?
Committee rep.
Well, the ones that kind of is the main person. Was it committee rep?
Yeah, like she was talking about the committee rep. We have actually
Oh,
never
okay.
voted on
Right.
on our chair in the pair chair. We have always just gone with you and whomever you feel comfortable delegating. We're very informal. And I do not think we want to go into choosing someone. You can delegate and you can say, hey, I won't be able to do this. Totally fine. And then someone else will step in. It's just a volunteer thing.
Yeah, I just don't want to assume that that's the case. And, we have, as a working group, if folks feel that we need to have a committee rep election, then we can do
No,
that.
we
And
the committee rep,
yeah,
we always do. That is mandatory. However, for the chairing
that's what
these
I meant, the chair.
calls, yeah, chairing these calls, we have never done it. And clearly, if you feel like that's something that we should do, sure. Like let's start a thread in general and see how people feel about it.
Well, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with continuing the role that I've been
Yeah,
doing for
John,
10 years now, 9
thank you
years.
so much. This is a job that no one
I lost
wants.
track.
So we love you. Thank you. And you don't see
Yeah.
my face, but I'm like using all the air. Please continue.
Okay.
Move on.
Oh, and I have to share the screen here. Sorry about
Oh
that.
yeah, like mhm.
Glad you mentioned that.
And I rewrote the part about the post that we sent on Sunday because it was published by David. However, it's a group post. It has 3 members in it, right? So it needs to be written as Tommy Tribe, Atlanta Jack, and committee rep. And I can do Emerson there as well because I'm having it to be too formal.
Okay. Sorry, there was something else I was going to talk about. tutorial update. I think Emily has been chatting with Drew a little bit, and he's been a little bit with me too. So I'll tell you what. Let's start out with David's post, and I'm gonna go on mute as I figure out my headphone situation. But David, you want to kind of give an update? And I think you also sent it to a Jakarta mailing list as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it would be a
Yeah.
change on the Jakarta side of the fence. And let me catch my breath because I was preparing some food because I haven't eaten yet, and you were going to go through the through the agenda, so I wasn't ready. So I ran back to the computer. Give me 1 second.
I can still do that a little bit. I'll tell you what, while you're doing that, Emily, you want to cover the tutorial and the update to the tutorial with Tarun?
Yeah, so the tutorial is pretty much nearly done, except the GitHub pages. Before the holiday, basically I had a couple calls with him trying to set up GitHub pages. However, that did not work. I think now we are back from holiday. I think I still need to connect with him to continue the GitHub pages. So that's kind of the left remaining things to be done for the current tutorial. And then we discussed whether to update the tutorial with the latest MicroProfile 7.1 and plus add a couple new chapters. One is the telemetry that's up as part of the MicroProfile 7.1. The other one is GraphQL, brand new page. So we got some estimate from Tarun on how much he will charge for the brand new chapter, GraphQL and telemetry. His fee is about 1K, and for updated Open API and REST client, so that's very minor update. He charged for 500. So John and I had a discussion yesterday. We think update is a very minor update on the REST client and also the Open API. I think that's overcharged. We plan to do it ourselves because it is pretty much a very minor update. And then if the group are happy with the price for the new chapter, we could go ahead to have these 2 new pages added. We will continue the discussion at the marketing call because we didn't want to bring it up, but yesterday the marketing call did not happen. Just I think I just joined me and Lucky Man joined. I think pretty much is kind of pretty much people are trying to gradually come back from holiday.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 So that's pretty much that's all I want to say. We will continue the discussion.
Emily, I have a question about this. I did ask Tarun to create a blog, and he finally submitted the ticket about the blog before we went, or while we were on vacation. I don't remember, but I think the ticket is created. However, the blog should be linked to the tutorial GitHub space. And if we're talking about, you said that we still need to do some work in the tutorial that is not finite, like it's not totally like ready to be consumed. Is that correct? I think we lost Emily.
No, Emily, you're on mute, and
Oh
so was
yeah, yeah, I'm here. I did not quite get to you.
Oh yeah, sorry. So so Tarun has submitted a blog, and we need to review it. But before we review it and publish it, we want to make sure that the publication lands in a finalized tutorial. When I heard you at the beginning providing a status, you stated that there are some things that need to be done, and I was wondering if we have an ETA on that, so that we cannot go in parallel on this. Either we wait until all of it is done, so that when we publish Tarun's blog and the tutorial, as to say thank you to him and highlight him because he's a professional vendor. You know, he can be hired to do this for other projects as well. Do we wait for that, or what is the take on, what is the take on?
I think I need to have a look at the issue. I don't know what the blog is writing. I
Okay,
will catch up with that. We will talk over that issue. Yeah.
okay. And also the other thing is, another Ryan brought up maybe 2 months ago, that we need to import the tutorial to MicroProfile IO. And that is also to know how to do this so that it's less human interactions for the updates. So we need to figure it out. That would be 2-3 items on tutorial. Then we need to write into maybe not general, but marketing. That says we have the blog from Tarun, we have whatever needs to be finalized before the blog goes live, and we need to bring the source of truth aside from the Git is MicroProfile IO. We need to have the link there, make it proactive. How are we going to do this? So there are 3 things I see we need to do on the marketing side. I might need to join the next one in 2 weeks to help on this as well.
I think we should work on the marketing side.
Yeah.
On the
Mhm.
issue. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and something else that we have to talk about on the marketing side, and I forgot I think I've got it somewhere in the meeting minutes. But we need a spec page for long-running actions. So we'll have to, I have to look and see if I created an issue on that. I think I might have. So I think, was it Ariane that reached out to us, Emily, and basically said, hey, where's the LRA page? Is there going, are you guys still doing LRA? It's like, yeah. So we need to create an LRA spec page. So we'll bring that up at the next marketing meeting. Okay. So David, let's pivot back to you. Are you?
Yeah, I'm all good.
Ready? Okay. All right. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, well, so has anyone had a chance to read the email? So before I give the background on the email, if anyone's had a chance to read it, I can just recap it.
I've read it, but I still think a recap and just hearing
Okay.
it from you would help.
So high level, I mean, it's sort of a trying to make lemonade out of lemons situation, because obviously we don't want MicroProfile to move, because we do like the way this working group is structured, because it's public. We make all our decisions together. We do our own marketing. We get to work on marketing. And we get to actually do these types of things. And it's flat, and it's very, it's a very open, transparent community. And it's very cost effective. It's cheap. And so we definitely think it has a lot of value for the ecosystem. But if it's going to move over to Jakarta and we're going to not have that, are there some things that maybe we could fix on the Jakarta side of the fence? And obviously, we'd love to see more openness, but I know that those private meetings are not going to go away. Discussions on the private lists are not going to go away. But one of the very big things that is a big downside of how that is structured is that at the beginning of creating Jakarta, we moved all the implementations into the same working group, because we didn't really want to spend time dealing with the overhead of splitting everything out in those early days, because we were just so prioritized in getting the donation from Oracle to Eclipse done. And we didn't even have the specs yet. We didn't even have the spec documents. We didn't even know we could get them, So there was just so many critical things that we had to worry about. We just sort of left that as a low priority. Here we are, like 7-8 years later, and we still have the implementations inside the Jakarta EU working group. And so our desire to have a vendor neutral working group is not real. It is not what we have. And this manifests itself usually in small ways, but it is seeming to be something that we're relaxing into and just accepting as fact that some implementations are more important than others because they live in the working group. And therefore, when we create initiatives on the Jakarta East side for marketing, for example, there's a mentor program coming up that will create badges and give people, awards for certain numbers of commits and achievements and stuff like that, and also to encourage people to become committers and contribute their time. And it's great when that's for specifications, but when we're doing that for just some implementations, for all other implementations, it means we have to compete with that because we also need resources and we also need committers and we also need people to work on our projects. And when the working group is saying, hey, these are the important projects, and using the Jakarta logo for that and justifying this with the fact that those implementations are part of the working group, it isn't vendor neutral. Then the second fact is that's one issue. If MicroProfile moves over into the Jakarta working group and the namespace stays org Eclipse, we'll have a situation where one working group is producing implementations and specifications under the org Eclipse namespace. And I think that will be very difficult for people to understand what's standard and what's not. And that will just simply reinforce this idea that the projects themselves, the implementations themselves are the standard. Because a lot of specifications over on the Jakarta side have just one implementation. At least in MicroProfile, we have a couple implementations for almost everything. And so if we can at least get the implementations out and put them in their own working group or have them stand alone and be supported by the people who are really invested in those implementations, that would at least allow us to say, all right, everybody wants this MicroProfile and Jakarta to be together, so we will vote to move it along with everybody else, and then we'll get moved. But if we don't fix this issue with the fact that the working group contains implementations, and we continue to market those implementations from the working group, and we move MicroProfile in, and what then would be the forcing factor to get this situation corrected in the Jakarta working group? Because honestly, I've raised this issue a dozen times over the last 8 years, and no one really cares because the majority of people who participate and pay rely heavily on the Eclipse implementation. So there is no motivation for anybody to shake things up or do something that ultimately is an advantage for them. And I understand that, business is business. If something's going your way, you don't want to shake things up, but it isn't vendor neutral. And it is very discouraging for other people who are on the minority who don't use those implementations. So maybe this is an opportunity we can fix that. If we're going to merge MicroProfile and Jakarta E, maybe we can at least get the implementations out of the working group so that when we create vendor neutral, when we create marketing programs on the Jakarta side of the fence, they're at least vendor neutral. That they don't play favorites to some implementations because they happen to be hosted at Eclipse. I went back and looked through the conference, the Jakarta One conferences, and every opening keynote we list how much Jakarta is growing, and we list the lines of code, and most of those lines of code come from the implementations. And in the closing keynote, we list all the awards we're giving out to people who contribute the most, and we always list the Glassfish contributors. And, you know, it's disappointing because we wanted there to be no RI and there to be a truly vendor neutral ecosystem, but it is simply not that. And MicroProfile is vendor neutral, and it is open, and it is cheap, and it is all the things that we wanted. And so, you know, let's try to get something at least done on the Jakarta side of the fence if we're going to abandon all what we've accomplished with the MicroProfile working group. And so, you know, it is very much trying to make some lemonade out of lemons situation for us.
You know, on the MicroProfile side, um, when it so this is a tangent but related, right? As we talk about, you know, you listed out a lot of benefits of MicroProfile. Um, I think what's happened over the past few years is, especially with a lot of the red hatters joining ABM, is we now have, from a technical contribution perspective, most people are IBM employees, right? Which is not healthy. Um, Obviously, marketing is much more broad, right? And Tommy Tribe, I know, is very involved. Um, but from a technical perspective, it tends to be very heavy IBM now. And I understand that because of the core profile requirement, it's less interesting from a technical perspective from a Tommy Tribe.
It's not, we never said it wasn't interesting. It just
Okay.
put it out of reach for us. You know, we're
Right.
clear of that, right? That it took us a really long time just to get the Jakarta 9.1 certification. We spent a year having conversations and votes in the community to make sure we weren't going to be increasing the technical level beyond that when there was no actual technical justification for it, when we weren't relying on features for the later specs. And then hoping that we would be able to we were basically, aside from Jakarta 10, we were ready to go for the MicroProfile 6 vote. We would have, and we still haven't leveraged any Jakarta 10 features aside from core profile, but we don't leverage any technical, you know, core profile is a profile. It's just a set of technologies. Now, to your point though, John, I would just simply point out that the majority of specification projects on the Jakarta side of the fence have the same fate. A lot of them are inactive. You know, and that inactivity comes because there is just one implementation for many of those specifications. And so there isn't a lot to drive things to the specification groups. So the flaw that you see on the MicroProfile side exists on the Jakarta side of the fence, and nothing gets fixed.
So is the technical contributions still heavily IBM driven, or is it more broadly? Because, you know, I see Ariane in some others.
It's so yeah, Ariane is there, but for a lot of specifications, there are no contributions, just like we have here, right? And there's a trickle amount of activity for the rest. And you know, I'll just state what I said in my initial reaction to the topic of merging them. If so, we already know how we react as vendors when we perceive an ecosystem where we either one, feel we're doing all the work, or two, feel we have no control or not enough control, or the value is diminished, right? If you feel the value is diminished, then the standard reaction is we'll continue to participate, but only defensively. So don't propose any ideas. But if you see an idea show up that might harm one of our products, you go ahead and make sure that we're protected, right?
Mhm.
And I know that's a thing, that is a real thing that happens. And on the other side of the fence, if you're one of the last people actually contributing and you feel you're one of the only people contributing, which was the case largely in the last few days of the last few years of the JCP, Oracle was contributing to the specifications, but honestly, alone, aside from independents, there weren't a lot of companies contributing.
Mhm.
And so ultimately, the ecosystem shut down because when one person feels that they're the only ones contributing, they want to shut it down, just like is happening right now.
Mhm.
But as I'm saying, there's not a lot of activity on the side of the fence. So we shut this one down, we go to the other side. Now the budget's higher. Now the control is less. Things are private. We can't get a lot of stuff done because there isn't public oversight to help protect us on certain discussions, which can be beneficial to have public oversight. It's harder to be pushy or rough or tough or firm when people are watching, and you tend to be a little bit more pragmatic because people are watching, and so certain things are easier to do when there are people watching. Can get change accomplished sometimes. But when there is no one watching, even if sometimes you can't get the change accomplished, as in, for example, getting implementations out of the working group, which is supposed to be vendor neutral. That's a change you can't get accomplished because people can just flatly ignore you in private, whereas in public, they would have to usually have a conversation with you.
Mhm.
Um, anyway, if we shut this one down, I mean, I just say that I just said it over and over again. I firmly believe we're taking a step towards uh, eventually a failure on the Jakarta side of the fence because we wind up back in a situation where no one wants to contribute because they don't feel that there's enough control there. They're fed up. They continue to pay and have their logo and their name associated, one for marketing, two for defensive purposes, but there is no actual contribution happening. And the few people who do contribute then start to get sick of being the only ones who contribute, so they give up too. And then it's just done.
So one question, which is actually, I'm going to pause and see if anybody else has thoughts or input into this topic.
I think moving the implementations out of the Jakarta EE makes sense. For example, I think it's the kind of I don't really think it matters whether to set up a separate working group or not. It could be moving out the glass page to be a library, like its own project and etc. And it should work as well.
That's an option, absolutely. The only reason I mentioned working group is because there is a budget item associated with paying for the infrastructure, and there's about 60K we spend annually, and over the course of like 8 years, that's a lot of money we've spent on infrastructure that Eclipse gets, right? And they've already voiced the opinion that no other implementations are allowed to use that other than the Eclipse implementations. And so if that budget item is going to stay, it would need to be paid for by the implementations that benefit from it, or any implementation that is contributing to a specification going final would be allowed to use it, regardless if it's hosted at Eclipse.
I want
So,
to, I'm
so is that
sorry,
like
John.
running TCKs and stuff, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's infrastructure. But that includes the build infrastructure and everything. That's basically all the increase in infrastructure that Eclipse had to buy new hardware to pay for those CS systems. Now, we haven't had new hardware every year, so third option is maybe we don't even need that budget item in the Jakarta budget anyway. It could just be omitted. Honestly, if you, what is it, 60 times 8? That's like $480,000 we've paid on infrastructure. That's a lot. If you were buying 480 grand worth of hardware, obviously that includes time too. So it's not exactly straight hardware cost. But then if it does include time, then that time gets spent every year, then okay, well, they'll probably want budget for that. I offered the working group as an option, uh, primarily for Eclipse's benefit, because they would probably want some costs covered. They typically do. It's reasonable. But I can also understand how we've funded the infrastructure quite heavily, basically $500,000 for infrastructure over 8 years. It's probably plenty, you know. So we could just maybe X that line item. But what I don't want is there to be continued line items in the Jakarta EU budget dedicated to only Eclipse implementations. I would want the Jakarta EU budget to be clean from that.
I mean, go
Go ahead, John.
And let me just go in here, but also state something that was not stated in the email. To the two mailing lists, to the community MicroProfile and Jakarta MicroProfile. Even if we decide to save the MicroProfile working group, which will be my preference, the Jakarta should clean up their infra. As David stated early on his explanation as to the history, we continue to forget what was meant to be. Open calls that went private because of legal with Oracle, infra that we were so overwhelmed with transferring all the code that was like, I remember like Bill Shannon talking on this, and he was a stickler on infra. It was one of his things to get it so completely clean. And sadly, he's no longer with us, but we are to do what he hoped will be a Jakarta EE now, which means
well,
that
I'll be honest. I raised the issue of implementations being in the working group early, and I've continued to do it.
I know.
But Bill was the first. I'm talking. Bill was the first one to respond and say this working group includes implementations. And
it was temporary. I remember him saying it was
suck it up. It was his.
It was temporary.
He did not have that perspective.
Well, he changed that later because it was temporary, and I like bringing him up because he was a stickler on it. But my point is, if we save MicroProfile and we keep openness, the email has landed to 3,000. Hopefully, maybe 1/3 will read. Even if 1,000 readers out of the 3,000 read the email that was, reading with 3 members from the Jakarta with the MicroProfile working group, we can help bring neutrality or to Jakarta read. For example, Emily, you're saying, hey, I think it's a good idea. You should write it up and send it to the 2 communities because that is IBM. Clearly, John, you are now IBM, so there's no longer Red Hat. Here we have a few IBMers. So this call will land into YouTube, but you see how many people have the opportunity to read and to listen, right? Most of us read. So anything we're sharing here, if you have not stated in the forums, please do so. Payara is here. We have 2 of you here, and we already heard from Payara that you think is a good idea. I wonder if Luis and Alfonso have anything to say in addition to what your CEO stated, right? Like because otherwise it would be just 3 members out of 4 in this call talking. And it's not to put you under fire, but we should be writing as well. And we can help that community that we're part of bring neutrality that does not exist in many levels. Openness, I doubt it. We have fought so hard that it is super nice to mention what happens in private. And guess what? It's really challenging. And it's not because there are not people that have good ideas. It is just because those ideas
To have it,
unwritten, they don't even land into the minutes.
you
And
know.
this because you are not the chair of the steering committee or the marketing committee or the person that is writing the notes. There is a choice to be a part of those calls, and they are open. Should the MicroProfile group go into that? There will be no MicroProfile anymore. There is no openness. So we need to really match it. And, I think fighting for neutrality on that side is really important. And we could help it if this happens, but ideally it doesn't. We don't lose MicroProfile, yet the neutrality, moving the implementations out of Jakarta is ideal, not only on the financial perspective, but also as we want people to feel that it's a flat base to becoming a contributor. They can become a committer without the bias that exists because of history. That's it.
I wanted to hear from John because he was about to say
ahead,
something.
John.
So
Yeah.
I don't even know if he remembers.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Now you're checking. Now you're testing my age here.
I know.
Yeah, my own as well, John.
No, I know. I'm
We were-
sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Well, no, I mean logically, this moving it into its own group, and we can discuss whether it's a project or working group, separately. To your point, makes a lot of sense, and I understand what Bill said. Bill. And I miss Bill a lot, right?
Me
'Cause
too.
I worked pretty close with him,
I
at
miss him
Oracle
so
for a long
much.
time.
He was,
Um,
I idolized Bill.
Yeah. But he and I disagreed on a lot of things, and
yes.
Also, still idolized him. That's how awesome he was.
absolutely,
I know.
absolutely. So, there was a couple of things that I recommended that he also kind of shot down, but are actually fact now, right? So, the statement that this is the way it's going to be, I agree, should never be, especially if it's, by a single person. I'm not sure if others felt the same way, about having implementations in the working group, as a stepping stone, right, to get it into the Eclipse Foundation. I understand, making that decision. But now, if not prior, having it in its own project, I understand exactly where you're coming from. Might make sense. I haven't responded yet because I wanted to, bounce it around with some of my peers at IBM / Red Hat, right? But now IBM,
Right.
to to understand the impact, right? So there's absolutely going to be effort involved, right, in doing that. And I know that Jakarta wants to increase the pace, which is very difficult because of, if you want to call it, darn it, what do you call it when you have old stuff that you need to modernize?
Legacy.
Thank you. Yeah, well, legacy. No, I meant like the
Technical debt.
Thank you. That's the word. Yeah. See, that's my age again.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. The nouns are the first thing to go. If I
The
ever saw you
profanity
guys
is
at
the
a
first.
conference, I would remember half of your names.
Yes, the profanity is the last thing to go.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, it keeps having to deal with technical debt, right? That slows it down, and I just want to understand the impact of this, and get other opinions as well. Not that I can't have an opinion and post it. I mean, I just gave my opinion here. It makes a lot of logical sense, but I don't fully understand a lot of the implications of it, right? So I just wanted to get some perspectives. I
Yeah.
do plan on responding to it. So you have it in the MicroProfile group, but you've also posted it on the Jakarta side, right?
Right, because that's where the change would need to
Yeah.
be.
You need
But
to write a
many
board
people
on
on the Jakarta side want MicroProfile to come over, right?
Right.
And so, it's the statement of if we're going to put all our eggs in one basket, let's take a couple of eggs out because they didn't belong in the basket in the first place.
Mhm.
You
In
know,
this, yeah, in this case, actually, I keep on brought up like Jakarta physics. If I can say that name correctly, Mahara
yeah,
is
good job.
has the API implementation, and then the Jakarta spec worked based on that. That's too tightly coupled. And with this activity, probably we could we can separate implementation from API in a better fashion. So
Yeah,
that's a bigger
uh,
technical
yeah,
debt.
it's the same for well, so a couple. So you're correct. There is no actual interface API, and so therefore, when we create the Jakarta EE 10, 11 Uber jar, it includes a functional implementation of JSF delivered by Mohara, and it's the same for Java Mail. Also has no specification. Those specifications don't have interfaces, and there would be no way, don't have many interfaces. They're abstract class based, and honestly, servlets is the same situation because HTTP servlet is not an interface but an abstract class. You have to subclass, and that class is tied to the server. And so so our Jakarta E jar has Eclipse implementations in it. And so therefore, people can use it as is to run against Glassfish and do that. And I have had people tell me, why can't I run Tommy with the same jar? It's like, because those are totally different implementations. That jar is not vendor neutral. That jar is tied to Glassfish. Uh, that person, one of those people was Ken, who wrote the Jakarta tutorials, you know, and he goes out and teaches that stuff, and he was wondering why didn't that work? What's wrong with Tommy? This is a bug in Tommy, right? It's like, no, it's not a bug in Tommy. It's the fact that that jar is not vendor neutral. Now, we probably won't be able to change the JSF specs and change the Java Mail specs to be implementation separated. The MyFaces jars are the same way. They do include all of they're just the same way as Mohara, and so is the Geronimo Java Mail. It is basically an implementation of what the quote unquote spec is. The spec is just a document, it's not an API jar. The implementation is the API jar and the implementation mixed together, as you were saying. Now, what we could do is consider is as that platform API jar, that's an Uber jar, is only there for people to compile against. It is not there for people to run against. They're supposed to be using the APIs that come with the implementation. We could literally run it through a bytecode process that guts all the methods and has them simply throw unsupported operation exception, and then it would be vendor neutral. You could compile against it, but if you tried to run it, it would fail for everybody identically and could give them information about why. That would be an example of a vendor neutral thing we could do. That's a small technical thing. Um,
Think,
but
David,
what's that?
I think for that one, I don't think it's a problem because in MicroProfile, we have a clear separation between the API and the implementation. All of our TCK can run empty-handed. So it's a run and successfully. And when you do the TCK, when you do the certification, you plug in the server and to have a real meaningful test result. I think the test can be designed in a fashion. It can compile and run without any implementation provided.
I was remarking to your My Faces comment.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So the My Faces thing is an example of something that Not that my not MyFaces, but Mohara. You were talking about Mohara.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that API is not going to ever be separable from the implementation because it's just legacy. It was built that way. But the Uber jar we create, for example, could be made generic by simply taking out all the implementation code from a bytecode engineering tool and replace all the method bodies with unsupported operation exception. Be very, not it would be a not impossible thing to do, and it would still function for compiling, which is what that jar is for. But if anybody tried to run it, we would all get the same behavior. It wouldn't be that it worked for some people and didn't work for other people, leading the people who didn't work for it to feel that, oh, there's a bug in that server. It's not as good as the other one. I'm just going to use the other one because it's quote unquote easier. These are small things that we do that create imbalance in our ecosystem, but those are not the things that I'm concerned about. The things that I'm concerned about is when we're creating marketing initiatives in the Jakarta EE working group itself, currently planning a gamification of, getting new contributors for projects and we're including in the scope all the Eclipse implementations, saying so and so contributed to to Mohara. Congratulations to them. If you want to be a contributor to Mohara, here's how you do it. And there's a Jakarta logo on it, coming from the Jakarta Twitter handle and the X handle and the Blue Sky and all the social media and the website. And then we're thanking those people on the Jakarta One keynote and on the opening and the closing keynote, in the closing session. That's impossible to compete against. So if what we are concerned about is there only being one contributor to the whole ecosystem, well, that's the way to guarantee it, because you're picking the winner and saying that's the one that's going to win, and everybody who is aligned with that one is the winner, and everybody who isn't is the loser. Losers don't have resources to spend, right? So if you want a diverse ecosystem, you got to stop playing favorites. You got to stop just saying these are included, so therefore they're special and we're going to treat them special, and isn't that nice? And there's nothing you can do about it because no one wants to change anything. And so every time we raise it, no one says anything, and therefore it's going to stay that way. But meanwhile, we're giving up communities like MicroProfile because there's one contributor, but we're guaranteeing that on the Jakarta side with our activities of saying these are the best implementations for everyone to use. These are the ones that we support.
Besides yourself, because you mentioned that you've been discussing this for quite a long time, have other folks, especially the ones that do implementations, feel the same way? Well, implementations that are non-Glassfish based. Have you had conversations with them as well? And do they feel the same way?
The majority of implementations are Glassfish based.
Yeah, there is no diversity out of 26. I think 24 are wrong. But one
but
thing.
I'll state. I mean, like Steve did come out and say, this makes a lot of sense. I've raised those issues. I think what made things a lot clearer for Steve is, when Piranha Cloud went over to become Eclipse project. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but Andro and Ariane, they created Piranha as their server, and then they launched off a company, and then they donated the server to the Eclipse Foundation. So now it's living there in E4J right next to Glassfish. So when we count up the lines of code in Jakarta EE, it includes the lines of code in Piranha as well as Glassfish.
Okay.
Right. So, it didn't take long for people to start using that for their advantage. Not that they're doing anything underhanded. They're just simply trying to make an Eclipse project.
But that group also came they were like, Arjan was one of the first people to say, hey, this sounds great, let's do it. Because he knows.
Yeah. He also supported it. You know what I mean? So
immediately.
So these are people. There are other people supporting. You wouldn't be alone if you said that you also support it. You would be next to Tommy Tribe, next to Ajug, next to Emerson, next to Payara, next to Ariane and Andro. If there's a couple more of us who pipe up and say this is important to us, you know, I think this happens.
I would like to say that it can happen without terminating MicroProfile. It just needs to happen.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm a person of my word, so
I know.
if people vote to do this, then I will vote +1 as promised.
Yeah, we will vote +1. You know.
So there's no take backsies.
No, we will not. Of course not. But if the vote doesn't pass it, even though Tommy Tribe will vote +1.
Right. Well, then it would be required for you guys to vote -1 because
Correct. Because
because I, you know, I'm a person of my, you know, if you can't be trusted, then there is nothing.
Correct. And AJAG and a committed rep for the MicroProfile side.
Well, they would make their own decisions, but
yeah, but they already committed because their email exists, right?
well, they make their own decisions. They can take back anything they want, but we would not.
Yeah, we will not. But this is it. John, like when you submit the ticket for this video call, to the Git, is it possible that you pull me in because I would like for MicroProfile to use the media to publicize this video. I think that we need to use the media, MicroProfile media, to do this because it's such an important topic. It has been way overdue on a little bit of history, and it should be, now that we're back. Hey, we're back, and this is what is happening. Discussion, so we can highlight the thread and the video and that blog post. So if you can pull me into it, I will create it with your help. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah. I'll see if I can do it today or tomorrow, but I'll definitely tag you on the ticket.
That sounds amazing. Then Ryan will prioritize it so that it can be every week coming out. Social media.
Yeah. I have had offline conversations with another implementation, but until they speak up and say something, I cannot comment who they are.
No, right? I understand. Yeah.
But I would say that the people who I've reached out to who are implementers have so far said either already posted or said that they felt that there was some merit there. You know what I mean? So
the other things you also mentioned in the thread is that add MicroProfile budget to Jakarta EE working.
Right.
With this, I do not know how it will pan out. So with this, previously the message said, okay, we will not, we will just sunset MicroProfile, and then people can save their save money, not to pay two working group fees. Now you pay directly, you still pay the same fee.
Right.
I don't know what the people think.
Well, I'll just tell you what, Emily, we communicated that, and then the fees instantly started changing in Jakarta for other reasons. They're connected. The money's going to get collected regardless. So we could just be direct about it.
Are you referring to the currency change?
Currency change, and then the other requests for, you know, that's just the beginning of that's one of the budget requests, right? So, you know, I just have, you know, just get 8 years of experience. That money's going to get collected. I promise you.
And I already stated it when IBM and Red Hat sent it, the proposal to move MicroProfile to Jakarta. One of my first things, and I have stated many times in these video calls through the community many meetings, that as soon as possible the price will be increased no matter what. And this is what happens. It was stated 10 months ago. It's
but
going to happen no matter what.
I'll add though, in the conversation that we should move the migrate the Jakarta or the MicroProfile budget over. I will state again, which I've stated privately, we were paying 70K for Paul Buck's time and he retired. That cost should be gone.
Who is the new chair for the certification committee?
It's Andrew from Prayara. He's doing a good job too.
Andrew, and is Andrew getting the 70K? Because
Well, no, of course not.
so last time I checked, and it was not 70, it was 60K. And last time I checked, it's super hard to revise the Jakarta.
Well, I'm simply pointing that out for the people who are here that also have visibility and votes on the budget.
Well, we vote -1, so
right. But I'm trying to say that if the MicroProfile budget comes over, it's not necessarily that the Jakarta budget increases 50K, because there is a head count associated with Paul Buck's time that should go away. So it might be a net nothing.
It's 60K. 60K.
Yeah, and I apologize. Just a heads up to everybody. We're actually past the top of the hour.
Yeah, we should.
Well, I can extend it. You know, I can hang on to finish up this part of the conversation.
Yeah, we can. I got some minutes. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay.
I got a meeting at 12:30, but I'm.
So that's
okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to say that's a good point, David, you raised. I would be interested to see this year's 2025 with the budget and also 2026 projection. I wasn't aware of the 70K paid towards
not 70, 60K.
I thought it was 70, but it might be 60. But I do know it's there. It's been there for a long time.
I checked the budget, and there is plenty of Eclipse services that should be. Some of them should be terminated, but the one for the chair of the specification committee, the nicely was a service that the Jakarta chose to pay to the Eclipse Foundation should be eliminated. And if it's not, then clearly we vote -1, but it should be tackled. And sadly, it's going to be tackled privately. So,
right. But if we're being completely fair to everyone involved, right, there is theoretically time associated with dealing with this working group or whatever. If we're going to reduce costs because something isn't happening, we got to acknowledge that the MicroProfile group and efforts would still exist. We're still going to be using this Zoom thing. We're still, we won't have budget conversations or anything like that, but the scope of what we cover in terms of specifications is not going to reduce. So, as much as I can appear to be, perturbed about budget items on occasion, then there are times where you should be fair or should attempt to be fair. And, the fair thing would be to say, Paul's gone. Let's yank that budget item from the list. If we're moving MicroProfile in there, fair is fair. Let's put that budget in the Jakarta budget. Eclipse does have expenses that they have associated with these budget items. And, they may not necessarily be 100% working group expenses items. They may be using those budget to pay for other expenses inside the foundation. But, I'm sure that's the case. Anyway, in efforts to make this the most palatable for everybody involved, that's why that is mentioned, right? To reduce the friction to making something positive happen. And if we can get the implementations out, then ultimately if we can get the implementations out and the time for Public's time removed, the Jakarta budget really isn't going to change that dramatically. And we do have, a couple other people who are now kicking in dollars. So there's probably more than enough budget to cover all of our
When you say
needs.
people, you mean new members, right?
Yes,
So
we
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 have 2 new members
we
and
continuously get new members, and I was told that one of the things that would be done with the budget is a few things that we were already doing.
So I'm looking at the budget, the program plan report, last year. Which line item is under for the pullbacks service? Is that dedicated support?
yeah, it used to be dedicated to Paul.
I don't recall for the current budget.
Now they don't.
The specification process management, is that one?
Correct.
That's probably that.
Yeah, correct. But it was a specific to Paul being the chair. It was written in a few years.
Right.
It was saying because he's the chair, so Jakarta gets services from the Eclipse Foundation, and that was way before Eclipse brought services for all the working groups. So this item is one of the pilots of, it's likely one of the pilots.
Yeah.
It happened before we had services by the Eclipse Foundation, where, we hire bloggers, we hire content, we hire marketing and all these other things. And every working group gets to choose what they pay and how they spend their money. Clearly, the accounting of every working group is managed by the Eclipse Foundation. We have no say. Once the budget is created, we can say, hey, let's spend it on this money, on this product, and these services. And then the Eclipse Foundation executes, right, Emily? So definitely watch it out.
Yeah, I mean, it was a reasonable cost to pay because, when we're shipping releases, sometimes we have meetings weekly, and Paul is tracking a spreadsheet, like doing real work. He was doing actual management. Now that spreadsheet is tracked by Ed Burns on the Jakarta side of the fence. Andrew fills up the gap, the task of chair and filling out the minutes and getting those approved. And so, now the community is doing that work.
So there is no Eclipse management under the.
So that dollar amount that you're looking at, about 60 or 70K, Emily?
How much is it right now, Emily?
It just says 50K.
50K.
Lowered.
Okay.
Good.
I thought it was more, but
no, it was 60. It lowered it to 50, and it's good. But it's terminated.
So I looked at a dedicated support, content developer, how much, and etc. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I don't really know how much content. I mean, content should be something you can read, and I don't really see too much of that.
Yeah, I do see it.
But anyway, we've had a lot of those discussions on that side of the fence many times, and no changes occur. But if we can all band together to request this change, I'm sure it will happen. Especially if we support it publicly, because then it's harder to ignore privately. There would need to be some follow-up saying, yep, we discussed it and vendor neutrality isn't in the best interest of the working group. That someone would have to follow up on the public thread to say what happened to it, but only if there's traction. So I would encourage you guys to have conversations internally and discuss whether or not, these projects no one's saying that they shouldn't be worked on. No one's saying that they shouldn't be marketed, and no one's saying that they shouldn't be evangelized. That can all occur, but it shouldn't occur as a function of the Jakarta EU working group. It should occur as a separate function.
Yeah. Understood.
Sounds good. I think, I think that's a good suggestion, David.
All right. I think with that, I'm gonna end the call. And next week is a technical call. So hope to see everyone there.
Yeah,
This is a good, really, really good call.
yeah,
Just,
Yeah, it
good to
was.
see you all.
yeah, it was so fun. Welcome back. I thought we totally did it. It's fun to be back.
Yeah, especially to see David coming back. We haven't talked with David for a long time.
because we have been static on one topic, right? And we have done a lot of the writing. So anyway, everyone,
Yeah.
let's on it. See you next week is the technical for many of you. And then we see in the marketing. I will join the next one with help.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about tutorial and all this other stuff.
Yes.
And let's publish this. Do we agree that we are going to publish this and then MicroProfile social media? So it will go to the 3 channels every week so that we educate and also bring microprofilers and anyone interested in the discussion for Jakarta and MicroProfile future, because this is actually the future
Yeah.
project.
Alrighty.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.